I was almost worried that this video wasn't going to have any content. With the number of people telling me I need to switch to Linux, surely I can just install my video editing software and it will just work, right? No, this is Linux. I want it to work. I want it to work so badly. As Windows gets more and more frustrating day by day, I so badly want it to work. Out of the major video editing softwares, Adobe's Premiere Pro, the Apple one, Sony Vegas, and DaVinci Resolve, the one that I use, DaVinci Resolve, supports Linux. So I went to their tech specs page, scrolled down a bit to find that they support specifically Rocky Linux. I'm not gonna do anything crazy, try to use an unsupported distro. I'm gonna use the one they recommend. I went onto the Rocky Linux website, downloaded it, and this is a completely fresh, untouched copy of Rocky Linux 10. To be very clear, I have done nothing to this Linux installation. So I went to get my video editor set up, right? I got my copy of Resolve downloaded, it is sitting right here in this folder, and then I realized, currently, the computer has no audio. Now, that makes sense. I need to install the graphics drivers to run audio through the HDMI cable and have 3D acceleration for DaVinci Resolve. So I go to get graphics drivers, right? I look up Rocky Linux NVIDIA driver, and there's Rocky Linux documentation and NVIDIA documentation, both of which need the terminal. We're less than a minute into this, and I already need to type commands into a terminal window. You know what? Sure, I'll go along with it. Let me just open my terminal window. Surely the terminal window is meant to crash the entire graphical user interface of the entire operating system. You know what? That's fine. We'll work around it. I had the same issues. Installing NVIDIA drivers resolved it for me. If only I could use the terminal to install the NVIDIA drivers. Other Linux distros I know of, I'm most familiar with Linux Mint. They have a driver installation thing. You can just select the NVIDIA driver and install it. This does not have that. It has to be done manually. I guess a Linux prerequisite is having a second device to look up the commands on while you don't have a working GUI. Let's start typing stuff in. We trust that you have received the usual lecture from the local system administrator. I am the local system administrator. I will lecture myself. Okay, I am potentially doing something. I have an absolutely meaningless wall of text, and it says things are succeeding. Probably good. I'm going to try really hard this time. This button should open a terminal window. Maybe? Yes, that is a terminal window. What did I need this for? This is already so off track. I needed the terminal to install the NVIDIA driver. In theory, the NVIDIA driver's installed already. Let's see if I can install Resolve. And see if my audio works. That was the whole point of this. To answer that question, no, my audio still does not work. I guess I don't have the NVIDIA audio drivers. Maybe I have the graphics drivers. I don't know. I don't know how to tell. Maybe I can just ignore that and run DaVinci Resolve 20.3.2. Cannot mount app image. Please check your fuse setup. What is a fuse? Is this a bomb? It's sure blowing up in my face. I really didn't think that this could get worse. Somehow, in the process of installing the NVIDIA graphics driver, I no longer have Ethernet drivers. There's no networking on this computer anymore. I guess I give up at this point. Perhaps there is a different, more user-friendly Linux distribution. I was going to try Linux Mint, but I'm pretty sure I've tried to install Resolve on Mint before and failed. I'm gonna try something else, something completely new. I now have a fresh installation of Pop! OS. This was another one that was recommended for running DaVinci Resolve. And there's an installation guide for installing Resolve on this operating system. I need to run this, and then apparently I need to run this third-party script by Daniel to make Resolve into a Debian package, which is just logical. That makes sense. It's been a few hours since I've started this, which means I could definitely have installed Windows, installed Resolve on Windows, and gotten a significant amount of a video edited. But on Pop! OS, I now have DaVinci Resolve 20.2. Does this work? DaVinci Resolve could not initialize OpenGL. Please ensure that the latest graphics drivers are installed. It looks like we're back to needing NVIDIA graphics drivers. And that went really well last time. Okay, this is promising, I guess. Oh, it's gone. It's purple. My computer has devolved into purple. How do we settle on that color? Under the assumption that Linux just really hates that computer hardware I was using, I did the thing that I said I was not going to do, and I took apart my entire desk setup to bring my regular computer here, which was annoying, but this is a bit newer, a bit better. We'll try this one. In addition to the different computer hardware, I've also ended up on Linux Mint. I don't know how I got here, but Linux Mint just seems to work better. It's also got this graphical user interface for selecting your NVIDIA driver, which just makes things so much easier. NVIDIA driver is installed, and the Resolve installer actually worked properly this time. It is sitting right here in my taskbar. Let me open this. See if it works. That's promising. We have gotten this far before. Unsupported GPU processing mode. Please review the GPU drivers. But I got the proprietary NVIDIA driver. That's what I'm using. And I switched graphics cards. This is a newer graphics card. Why is this still a problem? Do I try the newer driver, 590, or do I use the one it says might work, 570, but it says 570 plus? I'm going to try 590. All right, I've answered the question. The correct driver is none of them. None of them work properly. Where do I go from here? Someone on Reddit says I might need these packages, but the first one was already installed. Maybe this one? That is also a no. I thought this was gonna be easy. I restarted the computer. It still doesn't work. Nothing works. I've spent so long trying to figure this out now that I have passed 9,000 subscribers in the time it's taken me to install Linux over and over and over. I think I figured it out though. You just have to use the specific Blackmagic ISO for Rocky Linux 9, the one that is like in a hidden download link in the install instructions, nowhere on their website. And then you have to turn off Secure Boot on the computer, won't boot if it's on, and then you have to use Rufus in DD mode because in the other mode, it will not boot properly. It's so convenient. So you might be thinking now, surely Resolve is installed. It's open, it's launched, it's right there. Surely it works perfectly at this point, right? It doesn't support any codecs. You know how the standard video codecs H.264 and H.265, basically the only thing any camera records in or like an OBS recording is probably one of those two. It doesn't support H.264 or H.265 because of licensing problems. Once you get your footage imported into Resolve, this is about the experience you can expect. It'll load JPEGs, but every single video shows up as media offline, despite the computer knowing where it is. When you really think about it, this is saving a lot of time. You don't have to import any footage, because it doesn't matter if it's linked or not, it's all gonna show up as media offline anyway. Yeah, this is how I edit my videos now. Look at all this editing. Boom, it zooms. It does still manage to load the color generators I use as borders sometimes, and the text renders. Advanced stuff. If you do want to transcode every single piece of footage you want to edit into a supported codec like AV1, you can play it in DaVinci Resolve. I didn't want to do that. We have some random Netflix stock footage, and to be fair, it does work. You can do stuff in here. I'll drag some footage around, add some keyframes, make it animate. All of this stuff works as it does on Windows. We can even get really fancy and overlay clips on top of each other, and it still plays properly. That is only 1080p footage though. If I come over to this 4K clip, this is not even slightly usable. Maybe it's like that in Windows too. Really quickly, I want to see if these clips work under Windows. Goodbye Linux SSD. My any percent speedrun for getting footage loaded in Resolve on Linux, we're about 2 days now. Let's see what the Windows process is like. I'll run the DaVinci Resolve installer file. I guess Linux wasn't to blame for that stuttering. The same 4K AV1 60 FPS clip does stutter also in Windows. But in Windows, I don't have to use AV1. This right here is exactly the same project I was trying to load under Linux without any of the H.264 or H.265 footage. Under Windows, because Microsoft pays for that licensing, this just plays properly. It works completely fine on the exact same computer. And this footage is 4K 60 FPS. To answer my question then, is it possible to edit videos on Linux? Technically yes. Practically no. It doesn't really work that well. I really want it to work. It would be really nice to have a Windows alternative. But for DaVinci Resolve, Linux is not there yet. For the time being, my video editing is going to have to stay on Windows. Maybe that'll change one day, but that day is not today. Thank you for watching, and get subscribed. Just hit 9,000. Until next time. That's recordings on that one, okay.